Hello, my name is Godawski. Back in 2012, when I was 26 years old, less than a month after I was married, I was driving in my truck, talking to my wife on the phone, and during the conversation I told her I was seeing some blurry spots in my vision and didn't know what was going on, and that obviously freaked her out. The next thing I knew, I was waking up in an ambulance surrounded by doctors or EMTs and being told that I had just flipped my truck 3 times and they were transporting me to the local hospital. I freaked out. They shot me up with some medicine, and next thing I knew, I was waking up in the hospital, not knowing what happened, but being told that it looked like I had a seizure, that they needed to do some CAT scans to see what was going on. Next thing I know, they were telling us that I did have a mass on the right side of my brain right here, and that I needed to get that checked out as soon as possible. Over the next couple days, we went and saw a doctor, and a biopsy was scheduled. Once that was done, that came back, and we were told it was a grade 2 cancerous brain tumor, and that we would be waiting to see if any growth would occur, and if it did, they would take action. Long story short, about a year later, some growth did occur, and our new neuro-oncologist told us that the best treatment at the time was surgery, chemotherapy, and radiation. After surgery, they came back and told us that it had upgraded to a grade 3 anaplastic astrocytoma, and my prognosis was around 3 to 5 years. Obviously, that was absolutely devastating to not only me, but my wife and my family and friends. You know, it costs around $300,000 for the treatment and about $20,000 out of pocket, so thank the Lord for insurance. And as of today, I'm sitting 10 years after first finding out that I did have a brain tumor. You know, at the time, I was not told of any other methods that would help or hurt my outcome other than the treatments that were given. However, I do believe switching to our new neuro-oncologist at the time really changed the outcome on things. She had a great outlook, whereas the one before was really kind of negative, and that really put us in a bad spot at the beginning. But once we switched doctors, it really turned a switch in my mindset, I believe. And I believe along with that, I was still working out every day, still continuing my full-time job. And I really do believe that, you know, the exercise really had an effect on how well the treatment did for me and my body and how it recovered. The doctors were actually amazed that I continued to work and work out, which was kind of odd to me at the time, but you know, I knew that I needed to do that, so I did. You know, looking back at it now, I really think I was subconsciously using, you know, the placebo effect, thinking that, you know, nothing was wrong with me, and continuing on with life, exercising every day, and increasing that autophagy that I probably would have not have gotten if I didn't do those things. And then after, you know, a couple of years, we finally got the go-ahead to try to start having kids, and we ended up having our first kid, Addison. And after that happened, the fear and anxiety really took over my life. And you know, I hate to say it, but I started using alcohol to suppress all of that fear and anxiety, and that really put me down a bad path. And after hitting rock bottom with my alcohol use, I not only knew, but I was forced to make some major changes. You know, and after making those changes and getting my alcohol use under control, I discovered intermittent fasting. And after a couple months of major success with intermittent fasting, I found myself going down a lot of rabbit holes, you know, trying to figure out what can increase my results from intermittent fasting or the benefits of it. And not only to fight cancer, but to prevent cancer and actually live a better, healthier life all around. And after that, I really started experimenting with longer fasts. Like I went on a few 48-hour fasts, and I also introduced cold water therapy into my regimen. Then after that, I really started getting into running and fasted running, and I really upped my vitamin and supplement game. As of today, I continue to intermittent fast, work out, ice plunge, or take a cold shower every single day. I do that not only for the overall health benefits, but to also limit my stress and learn how to control my stress. I eat a high protein, low sugar diet. I take all my vitamins, all my supplements. I could go on and on about the supplements, but I take all of those. And one important thing to me is I do try to get 7 to 9 hours of sleep every single night. It's a little tough with 2 kids, but I do my best to get that 7 to 9 hours. Looking back at it now, it's extremely frustrating that these methods and unconventional treatments weren't given to us when we first started. If I would have known what I know now, I would have implemented everything and more to increase my chances of surviving and living a healthy lifestyle. Unfortunately, that wasn't the case. I'm not faulting my doctor. She did everything she could and continues to do so. I really wish there was somebody there at the time along with my neuro-oncologist to really teach us and give us options of the unconventional methods along with the conventional methods to have the absolute best outcome possible. We really love our doctor now, Dr. Marr. It's not her fault that she didn't know or didn't push these unconventional methods. In fact, I do believe she's one of the big reasons that I'm still alive today is, her positive outlook really instilled a belief in me that, I was ultimately going to be okay. If I were to give anybody advice today that just got a diagnosis or just struggling at all, is to be your own advocate. Do your research, find out the things that work best for you, experiment with things safely, and ultimately find those things that work for you and give you the energy to have the life that you want. Ultimately, knowing what I know now in practice, I do believe I'm still alive and thriving as I am today because of the unconventional methods that I've learned and practice each and every day. With that, I feel it is my duty to help and share what I've learned today with anybody out there that's struggling or, recently got a diagnosis. And with that, anyone out there that recently got a diagnosis or struggling with anything, there are people just like you out there that can relate to you and actually want to help you. So keep your hope up. Know that there is an answer out there for you that can at least help your outcome or actually change your outcome and even change your whole life in the process. In fact, my mom and I, we recently started a podcast, Resurrecting the Mind, Body, and Soul. And it's our passion to reach and serve as many people as possible that's struggling with the diagnosis or struggling with life in general. And we not only cover all the health stuff, but we cover mindset. And we really want to help as many people as possible. God bless.